Hey, welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here. Kind of a different video here today. So, I actually have some gripes with War of the Visions recently, and some complaints that I've never had in the game before. And not that I'm intending on quitting or I'm going to stop or slow down, but it's things that I'm thinking about more than ever now. And although I know a lot of my videos typically are, very excited and I speak enthusiastically, it's time for me to also kind of look at reality of the state of the game and give some opinions on it based upon what I actively know, what I anticipate, and where I think the game is going, based upon what we know from Japan at the very least. So, getting into that, and to be honest, part of that has also been the reason for the content drought recently, where it feels like I'm just running through the same hamster wheel every single week, and the repetition is, in addition to some of the things we're going to talk about, is just I'm a little disenfranchised at the moment. So we'll get into why. For those of you, refresher on who I am, because this is super important to know my perspective, because my perspective of where I am in the game is going to vastly affect my experience different than the majority of all of you. So some of the things I talk about may not be applicable to you, and that's totally okay. I'm a day one player, rank 151. I have never missed a day. I've literally played every single day since release. I've also played Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, which I'll talk about in a moment. Even before this release, for like 2 or 3 years, I was a content creator there, real big vet, did everything under the sun for it. The second thing, I am like a whale or a Kraken spender in some degrees. Obviously, those terms are subjective to dollar amounts and what you're spending on per se, frequency, size, etc. But let's be real, everything I have access to is a function of this. So puts me in a vastly different profile of what I have access to in the game than what the majority of the player base does. I have it top 10 in Arena. Now, don't look at this rank, but if you look at the title, Transcendent Mind is the title you get for top 10. So I do play like at the highest level potentially, or I can, and I say that also in the context that my guild Chocobo Force is number 7 in all of global as of this morning. Like, this is literally just took the screenshot. So we're ranked 7, so like we're in the top 10 of all the guilds. So my experience is vastly different than the average player, but I think a lot of what I'm going to talk about does still resonate with the majority of the player base, or at least I think it should. So to me, there's a content drop for the power creep. That's my biggest complaint. And Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, the cell phone game that was the predecessor to this, had the problem as well. And essentially what that means is, with all the new characters that get released with the frequency of weekly releases, there's not enough content coming out to actually A, make it worth it, or B, even as you accumulate and like spend all your viz and your money and your resources, when you look back on things, you're like, man, like I use this character for like a second, but like never again. And I hate that. We're going to get into why I hate that as well. But there's just generally not enough content. So the content right now that we get on a week basis, it's raids, number 1. And even when you do raids, you're limited to 4 units, and it depends if you're solo or multi. And if you're doing multi, you're typically only using 1 unit. You're not using all 4. And if you are doing it yourself, the raids have become power crept to the point where you can actually feasibly beat the raids with 1 unit. This recent Firebird raid, King Mon could solo it. So you only needed 1 unit, so all the other 50 units, go fuck yourselves, you don't need them. Like that, I hate that. So the raids obviously have issues on their own, but it's not like you're using a vast amount of like theory crafting on the raids on the current state of the game. The second thing, the Trials of Reckoning, so this is where like the ribbon and the Tidus necklace were released. Again, there's like bonus units for this, and sure, you might try to like maximize your score to try to get the maximum medals possible, but realistically, you're using like 4 characters. You're probably setting it to auto to maximize whatever skill you have, and then you're just fighting the boss over and over and over and over again. And even then, it's those 4 units, whatever the bonus units they happen to pick, and that's that. The tower, it probably is the best content overall, but you only get it like, what, once every 2 months maybe? The reason why I like this content is because you can use all elements for every different stage. As you go up, you're going to need to use different characters. You are going to have to rely on some of the variety of the cast for attack types, for strategies, get creative with how you build them and attack certain things. So you do get to use your full cast of characters. You do get to build parties of 5, which also makes it a lot more interesting in terms of what vision cards you use and what synergies you can create, because you have more flexibility with the vision cards and the equipment. So Tower is probably the best content. It's probably the one that I'm looking forward to the most when it comes out. You get brutal quests. Quite frankly, they're not brutal anymore, and it's really just metal grinding at that point, where you just kind of replay the same thing over and over again. It's to acquire like medals that you exchange in the shop for things that you exchange in the characters, and it's just a big circle. And those brutal quests, you get them for equipment, and you get them for equipment for characters that you aren't going to have to use in the future. So if you're grinding hard for Lohengrin at one time, well, like, we're not using Magic Slash anymore, and I don't know. It doesn't feel good that you can't reliably use all the characters at any given time. And not that you need to use all of them, but I should be able to use more than 5 of them, or 6 of them, and we're going to get into that soon. Why? Class Match, I actually like a lot. One of my favorites, because at least now it also does have the auto mode, but at least Class Match, they put some restrictions on it, whether it's like unit cost, or total cost, or rarity of stuff, so there is some like thinking that goes in, and some strategy with what the current meta is, and how you can optimize certain things, so at least Class Match does offer you to use a wealth of different resources, rather than just the repetitive same stuff all the time, or whatever like the strongest thing is at the moment. New storyline missions, let's be honest, you can beat the storyline missions with anybody in the game. You don't need the new shiny units for it, so the power creep of the new units is completely irrelevant to the new story missions. And then finally, this isn't out yet, but it is coming soon. They call them selection or acquisition quests, where essentially you take a mono element team of non-UR units, and you will use them to acquire UR units. It sounds backward, I know, but I know like Miraga is a character coming out soon, and essentially use all the Earth units you have that are not UR, and you'll get him. And so like that's cool, but again, like it's not, you only do it once, and that's it, and it's a small period of time, and it's whatever, and it's not even out yet. And then finally, Arena and Guild Wars is really the only place where new characters and new vision cards really shine, where you're constantly trying to optimize what you have based upon what's come out. But the rest of this content, you simply don't. I don't know how to say it. It's just boring, because you can beat most of this content without needing the new units, and that's cool and all, but like it doesn't make for a good gameplay experience. And not that we didn't know the game was already grindy, we knew it was grindy, but at least just to feel like there was a little more thought put into it, and I don't feel that anymore. The second thing I've realized over time, light and dark metas get stale. I absolutely hate when there is a light or dark meta. The reason for that is the counterplay is binary. Because they're both weak to each other, if there's a dark meta, well, you either have to play into that and play equal dark meta, or you have to play light because they have the strength, and you try to counterplay, and that's it. And it just goes back and forth. The difference to me, non-dark and light can go around the circle for counterplay, which I think is far more fun to theory craft. So for instance, when King Mont came out a week ago and fire kind of had a small rise, well, you bring out the Tidus, and so Tidus does really well against that. Well, if Tidus got too strong with it, we got 9S, and then they released the new MRX, and now they have, oh god, who just came out? Frederica X, so now you have Lightning to counterplay when Tidus comes. Well, if Lightning gets strong, well then the Earth units, they just released Luel, and Miraga's coming soon, and if they get strong, you have 2B, so you can constantly just kind of go around the circle of counterplay, and it never really ends. It just depends on what characters are available, as opposed to Light and Dark, where you just kind of bounce back and forth. So to me, I like the wheel much better, and now that like Black Rose Elena's coming out, and Warrior of Light X is coming soon, we're just going to get back into that same dark light meta, and to me that's frankly boring. It really is, considering that the light meta wasn't that long ago, and the dark meta wasn't that long ago with Dwayne Garville, and even before that, you know, you had Kane Dwayne for like months, so we're going to get right back into that. The other thing, the weapon type's getting stale too. Slash Magic has been prevalent for like 3-4 months now. It started with the Dwayne Garville meta right before the anniversary on the, I think it was the Mines map. But then Tidus came out, the Una release, there was Mono Light for the week, Gilgamesh X, King Mont has a Slash res down, and now Helena Garville back for another Magic meta. It's like just Magic and Slash, and like that's it. Like, don't get me wrong, I didn't like when the Kane meta was around because there was literally no counterplay to Pierce, but I liked when there was like a Missile meta and there was a small Pierce meta. We had a potential for a Strike meta, didn't happen. Like, they had Luel released, Raldor came out, 2B as the Monk sub job, but like, they were flash in the pans, they didn't really stay. So the weapon types, it's gotten stale to me, where it's like, okay, Slash and Magic, Slash and Magic, Slash and Magic, whatever. It just gets kind of boring. The other thing I hate, the game balance, it's not in the stats, the game balance is in stats, not in theory. So just to explain what that is to me, the majority of the cast, entirely power crept due to the X release. Plain and simple. Their HP values are like 2,000 to 3,000 times lower. Their attack magic stats are 600 to 800 times lower. Agility 10 to 15 lower. Everything, dexterity, luck, evade, all those stats. Halloween Leela used to be an evade unit. Now, barely even above average. You're not evading anything. So the fact that the game balance is in stats and not like using abilities creatively, using movement creatively, catering to map types with height and jump and, you know, stuff like that, that irks me, because to me that gets boring, because then that's literal like gotcha at its finest, if you will. And the new vision cards that are being released, they're statistical releases to balance the characters, not like to give them new and unique things. So like 2B came out, well, the Nier Automata card is like literally made for her to balance her and to make her competitive in terms of her attack and penetration and whatever the Lucky came out with. And you can see the same for a bunch of cards. Maidens of the Roads this week is a Frenera. Slash resistance penetration. Gives her attack up. Light resistance. A counter of heroes is the Rain X card. Dude, there's only one fire unit that you're going to use. And so fire 50% up. And this, like, it's meant for rain. And everything on the card is exclusive for fire. The same thing for Flash of Insight for Rob. Like, these are vision cards that you have to spend Visior on, and Visior is money and resources, and you have to spend it on this for like one character for the sake of balancing, as opposed to like looking at their kit and using their kit creatively, which I hate. I think it's starting to get lazy. And on that topic though, the lack of universal vision cards is starting to irk me a lot. I understand they're trying to tailor things for mono comps, but the plain and simple fact of the matter is there's not enough characters of certain types to run mono comps. Not every element has a tank and a healer. So you can't run mono fire because there's no healer for fire. You can't run, mono wind because there's no good wind tank. Dario is a one-trick pony for Magic. Like, the fact that they don't have that variety there makes it so that you can't really lean into the elements of the cards. So when they're releasing all these cards recently where the unit effect and the party effect are confined to that element, it gets boring because only certain elements have a tank and have a healer. And even if they have a tank, it might be a power creep tank. Like Dwayne right now is obviously, he's straight up power creep, like he is. Let's call it what it is. Warrior Light, the same thing. That's why he's getting the X release. Agrias, Agrias, power creep. There's no good ice tank at the moment. So like, the fact that you can't run these reliably at almost any given time makes these element vision cards really boring, and it's a waste of resources. And then although the element bonuses are nice for an anniversary change, the fact that these vision cards are now almost entirely confined to the element, it's bad. And so I thought I had an example of this. Oh, I do. The Phoenix. So the Phoenix vision card released, the fire magic resistance, it gives magic resistance to fire units only, but Fenrir gives magic resistance to everybody. Like, to me, Fenrir is a much more balanced card because you can apply it in a bunch of different phases of the game, and it's got some agility and it's got some HP. Whereas Phoenix, it's like very specifically meant for fire, and as we just mentioned, there's no fire healer. So if you put it on, well, Yuna or whoever your healer isn't going to get magic resistance. So now it's a mess. I'm not a fan of that at all. And so when we get into the other content that happens frequently, to me, the theory crafting for Guild Wars is limited, and that's where I spend most of my time now, because that's like the most day-to-day content. So the lack of viable healer and tank options make for really repetitive theory crafting. The healers, it's like Yuna, that's it. Ayaka X, maybe. I haven't even seen her used yet in the top 7 of the guilds. Like, it could just be because people haven't done it, but outside of that, like, Halloween Leela, straight power crept. Same with Eldyra. They can't heal the same. Their agility is limited now. The things that made them strong with their evasion or magic resistance, it's different now. So, like, you can only use, and you have to have a healer, I mean, flat out, because Eunice is too strong to fight against without. And the same with tanks. King Mont, Rain X, Warrior of Light X in a week, and Dwayne, like, sort of, but Dwayne still gets killed in 2 to 3 hits. Like, if that. So the amount of tanks you have and the amount of healers you have makes it so it's supremely limited, because you have to make a party of 3, and they're going to be 2 of your 3. So at that point, it's like, all right, what DPS am I going to use? Like, it just makes for really bad theory crafting, on top of the fact when you get into light and dark metas that, like, you're just stuck. I do like the arena bonus units, how that changes every week, where the arena comps change based upon who the bonus units are, so you're constantly like trying to tweak to whatever is strong that week. But that being said, the amount of actual time you put into arena on a day is really limited, and even when you were like aiming for the top 100 or top 10, all you're really doing there is just finding the same enemy and just attacking them and hitting skip and just beating them over and over and over, accumulating points. So it's not like a really interactive thing for even the high end of arena. So that being said, the rewards aren't even really worth it anyway, to be honest. The fact that you'd spend all this like money and resources on Guild Wars, and the only rewards is like guild medals, which you really don't need anyways when you play to the max level of the game, it's just like, why am I doing this? And it's a good question to answer. The conclusion, the game getting stale without content. I mean, you can only do raids for so long and get the same get equipment, and yeah, it's great that you have the equipment, but now what content do you need that equipment for? You don't need 3 Souls of Thamasis for anybody unless you're doing like top tier guild play, and even then, like, the rewards are limited and you're still stale with what the top meta is. So the fact that there's not enough content to actually like keep me engaged with the new characters, I think is really, really sad. Second thing, creatively boring, since the balance is based around numbers rather than theory. I would rather be able to game around comp synergies and AI and certain smart things with buffs, and it simply isn't available in the majority of the game right now. And then finally, the spend versus the reward. It's no longer satisfactory. It feels good. You know, if I'm spending all this Visior for a card that benefits one character, and that character is only good in a certain meta or a certain time, and they change quickly, like, and I'm glad it changes quickly sometimes, but at the same time, it's like, dude, what am I spending all this time and resources on? It's just not a good feeling considering how much of an investment it is and how little you actually get to do with it. So that's kind of my gripes in a nutshell. Hopefully some of that made sense. Hopefully I honestly don't have a lot of hope, to be honest, going forward in the future, because I think the game doesn't change as far as I know from Japan. So we're going to go on the next 2-3 months with the same stuff over and over, and then the same thing that happened with Final Fantasy X is going to happen with Final Fantasy VII, and bam, we're going to get cloud meta, and then like that's it. And now we're going to be in that box, and then we're just going to do that meta for a while. And it's just not a very creative way to play the game when you're talking about hoarding for 1 or 2 units, then they just dominate the game for so long, and there's not a lot of other counterplay to pick around with it, at least at the level that I play and the level that a fair amount of players play at. So apologies to be kind of a downer here, but I at least wanted to talk about this, get your thoughts on it. So questions, comments, critiques, all of it below, and thanks for listening. I'll talk to y'all soon.